Hey everyone. Today we've got something special in store for you. I've got Moya and Talyn here today as we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the Bredli Python. So stick around. I'm Jack and you're watching Python Addiction. Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. Wrangling two instead of one today. I have these beautiful babies out today as I wanted to introduce you guys to a type of python that I think is a great alternative for a first-time keeper when it comes to having a pet snake, and a few of the reasons behind that assessment, or my thought process behind it. Now, don't get me wrong while I'm going over this. I love my ball pythons, and I still think they're an excellent beginner snake, but there's something to be said about the Bredli Python as far as them being a great alternative for some people. Now, some people will call Bredli Pythons carpet pythons. Technically, they are not. They are not part of the Spilote family, at least not anymore. That was changed a few years back. I don't remember the exact date as far as that goes, but they have been granted their own clade, so they are Modurla bredlii. No subspecies, no nothing else. They're not part of the Spilote family in that regards there. They come from a very specific region in Australia. And that region is the McDonald region of Central Australia. Very close, or Alice Springs is right in that same region. So if you look at a map, here's a quick picture right here. That's where they're located from. Very mountainous area, so that's helped to kind of keep them secluded from many of the other carpet pythons of the Australian region in regards to the specifics that they have adapted to with living in that particular environment. And the reason why I bring this up is these guys are hardy. These guys live in a region to where the daytime temperatures during the summer months, during the hot months, or the dry season can get to like 110 degrees. And at night, it can drop to in the 70s. So a nice 40 plus degree difference in temperature swing from night to day. And where they will find their little homes or their little burrows might be a little bit warmer, but they deal with those temperature swings almost on a daily basis, which makes them very hardy in that respect there. And that's not the same case when it comes to a lot of the other coastal species, is they don't have as large of a temperature swing, and they can't handle the temperature swings in the same way that these guys can. Other carpet pythons also need slightly higher humidities, as their ranges and their where they're located generally have a higher humidity range to begin with. These guys, ambient humidity in most regions within the United States will be perfectly fine for these guys, as they have a much smaller, dense scale pattern, and their scalation is a lot more compact than even their carpet cousins. So shedding isn't as much of an issue. Their body is designed to hold in a little bit more of that moisture, so you can have ambient room temperatures 20, 30, 40% humidity and be perfectly fine, and they'll shed without any problems at all in that regards there. They are in my reptile room now, so they'll have regular humidity, and I'll still go through when I notice that they're going into blue. I'll take a spray bottle and spray down, because I still use coconut coir for their bedding. I'll still spray it down a little bit to give them a little bit of added humidity to their enclosure and everything like that, just to make sure that they don't have a problem with shedding. But it makes keeping them a little bit easier, as you don't have to worry so much about humidity, and you can use a enclosure that has a graded top for the top of the enclosure, like something from Dubia, and it won't be as much of an issue as like it would be for a ball python, with all of that humidity just evaporating. Their general longevity, very similar to ball pythons, as they can live 20 to 30 plus years in captivity without any problem. And when it comes to clutch sizes, a female can produce like 30 eggs for one clutch. So they're when it comes to reproduction and everything like that, a female can lay a lot of eggs at one time. So much more like some of the other larger python families that do the larger clutches and everything like that. I know I was watching another person's channel, and they said that they had one of their clutches was like over 40 eggs, which is just absolutely amazing. So it's one of those, if you're looking at getting into breeding, stay tuned, as I'll get into a little bit of those details, as it's going to be a little bit different if you've done any type of breeding with other pythons, like ball pythons, that what you have to do is a little bit different. Diet for these guys is pretty much the same as most other pythons. These guys are semi-arboreal. I would almost count them as actually arboreal. You can see they have prehensile type tails, so they will cling and latch on. As you can see, they're wrapping their tails up. They love to climb. So if you're looking at getting one of these, you're going to want to get something that has some floor space, but you're going to want height and stuff for them to climb on. Kind of like what I went over with Ruka from a Vietnamese Blue Beauty, giving them ample climbing space, as they will utilize that vertical as well as a horizontal space. Unlike their closely related cousins, again, talking about the carpet pythons, they're not spicy. These are still young babies. They're just over a year and a half old. They don't get bitey like I have seen with some carpet pythons in general. In their natural habitat, they really don't have, as adults, something that will go after them. There's no natural predator to go after them as adults. When they're young babies and everything like that, there's plenty of different things that are out in the wild that'll go after them when they're young, but once they get to adulthood, there's really nothing in their region that will go after them. So they don't really have that much fear. I know that one of my friends that does keep some of these, that actually lives in the region where these are from, has said that he's gone right out in the wild and has handled these and they have had literally no bite reaction, no fear, no nothing. So it's really amazing what not having a predator will do when it comes to the confidence level of a snake. So when it comes to handleability for these guys, it's absolutely amazing. They're not super fast moving. As you can see, I have two of them here. They're moving nice and slow, but they're not being reactive or defensive in any way. They're very inquisitive, and they seem to enjoy being held and just having some of that height. I'll hold them up a little bit. I've let them on the wall here, as I'll show you guys some the videos from that. They enjoy just being out. They're very calm and relaxed. So again, a very good choice if you're looking for a snake that's a little bit more reactive or inquisitive, and not the pet rock of the snake world with ball pythons that generally like to kind of ball up and just kind of sit there or don't move that much. These guys will move all around. So if you're looking for something that's easy to keep, that you don't have to really worry about bites or anything like that, these are definitely a great option. I will note they do have a decent food drive. So you do have to make sure that when you are feeding that your hands are not in the way, as they can mistake your hands for food. But otherwise, that's kind of the same for any snake in reality. Food bites can happen regardless. I mean, I've had my milk snake take my finger instead of his food on a couple of different occasions. I've had my corn snakes do the same thing. So that's not something that I count as a species-specific issue. It's just being mindful when you're feeding that you gotta keep your fingers and your hands out of the way of your hungry snake's mouth, or they might try to snack on your hand or finger instead. Size-wise is one of the things that some people might find a little concerning. Unlike ball pythons, which generally are around 3, 4, maybe 5 feet, depending on the size of the female, these guys can get a little bit bigger. They generally can get between 6 to 8 feet, and it's been noted with some more females getting to being closer to 10 feet in length. So they can get long. However, they don't get too thick, because again, they're arboreal by nature, and in their region where they're originally from, you'll find them 90% of the time in trees or up on rock ledges climbing up. So that means that they're going to have a more slender body. Weight on a male that's fully grown will only be like 1,500, 1,800 grams. Similar to a ball python that's a male. Well, most males don't get super big. I mean, most of my males hover at around the 1,600 to 1,800 gram range, but they're stockier than what these guys will be. Females, respectively, will get larger because they are sexually dimorphic. As far as size goes, females do get bigger than the males do. And the females, generally, an adult female that's not super long, that falls within that 6 to 8 foot range, will probably be around 2,000 grams-ish, give or take. Again, each individual snake is going to be a little bit different. And we'll put that into perspective. Some of my females that are laying eggs right now, like my girl Luna, she weighs like 3,800 grams right now. She's a hefty little girl, but she's only like 4.5 feet long. So you put a 10-foot snake in that same weight package, it's really not unmanageable. They're just a lot longer and slender in that regards. So when you're looking at feeding, you're probably never going to need anything more than small mice, or not mice, but small rats as adults for feeding them. So you could also get away with ASFs as adult ASF, so that could work as a alternative for feeding. With them being more arboreal, you are going to be looking at feeding them pretty much on a weekly basis. You can't really stretch it. I mean, to a certain degree you can, to like every 10 days, but I wouldn't stretch it too much because they are more active. They will require to be fed a little bit more often, but you just kind of gauge everything by their weight and their actions respectively. But you won't need to feed anything larger than like a small rat or an adult-sized ASF or like a baby quail or something like that as far as a meal goes. So very reasonable in that regards for the feeding side of things. Now, touching back again on the breeding aspect of things, this is if you're looking at potentially getting these, like what I have is a pair that I'm going to be doing breeding with, not anytime soon. And the reason why I say not anytime soon is because the males generally need to be around 3 years old before they are mature enough to breed. Females, 5. And you don't want to stray too much from that, as those of us who have done breeding in the past or are breeders do understand the stress that can go on to an animal during the breeding process. So you don't want to take your time when it comes to, if you're looking at actually breeding these. Then on the note of breeding, because these are an Australian snake and we can't get new blood in the United States, you do have to be very careful sourcing your animals to make sure that there's enough genetic diversity between breeding pairs that you're doing, because there's not a huge genetic pool available for captive breeding here in the United States. So that comes into some of the availability and pricing aspect of things. They vary in price, and it depends on who you're getting them from as far as a responsible breeder. You're looking at anywhere from $250 to around $400, maybe $500 for a baby. I mean, I've seen some adults actually going for the same price, because they're not as common, because in some respects they do take a little bit more space having that arboreal setup. So instead of a traditional like 4x2x2, you're going to want something that's like a 3x2x6 or a 3x2x5, or something that has a good amount of height to it, or even a 3x2x4, something to where they have space to climb up as well as the side to side. The other thing when it comes to breeding is these guys do require a drop in temperatures as part of the whole breeding process. You're going to have a space to actually cool them down at night, so they're going to need a nighttime drop into the low 60s. And that's going to be for a period of a few weeks. So during the day, keep the normal temperatures in the upper 80s to like 90 degrees, but having that cool down at night in the low 60s is needed to kind of trigger that breeding behavior that you're going to want to trigger to have a successful clutch. And those are some of the differences, because you don't need that with most other normal carpets. You don't need the drops or anything like that. They don't require UVB, but I have seen some people say that they do respond well to it. So that's also something to take into consideration, as their colors will change a little bit, and not enough study has been done as to why. It's like even with these two, I'll see them go from the grayer looks like what they have now to where like Moya will have more red in her some days, and it'll just pop and be very visible with the reds and the copper tones. And those are a lot of the colors that are in their natural environment. So they have a very good camouflage in that respect there. But they'll also go into more of the muted gray tones on certain days. So it's one of those very interesting things genetically, and I don't know what causes it, but it's a really unique aspect. Like with my boy Talyn here right now, his head is normally got the red spots, and today he doesn't have any red in his head. And that's how I can tell the two of these guys apart, because otherwise they look very similar with their head stamps give it away as far as who is who, because size-wise they're almost the same size right now. That'll change with time, but I wanted to do that little introduction with these guys today for you to kind of share one of my other Python passions, henceforth why I called myself Python Addiction, because I have a love for more than just the ball python, but many different types of snakes, and the Bredli Python is definitely one of those that is on the top of that list. But if you're somebody that's looking for a snake that's a lot more hardy and doesn't require as much in the way of humidity and can be a little bit more tolerant to temperature swings, even if you have those occasional drops in the temperature, and you don't have to worry about the humidity as much. As far as when they're babies, you can get away with putting them into a rack to start with. I would say I would stop doing a rack and actually have them going into enclosures by the time they get to about this size, unless you have a tall rack space to where you can still give them some climbing space, as like I said, they have that arboreal nature to them, so they do like to kind of perch around and hang around. So that's one thing also to consider when it comes to if you're looking at Bredli Python as an option. So if you like today's video, please do hit that like button, as that lets me know that you like this type of content. And as always, if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the channel and click that notification icon while you're there, as that'll let you know when I do new videos. I do new videos at least once a week. So until next time, love you guys. I'm Jack, and you've been watching Python Addiction.